sustainable economic future for our region. Despite persistent global challenges, including protectionist trade policies and geopolitical tensions, ASEAN's economic outlook remains resilient. The region is expected to maintain a robust growth above 4% in 2025 and 2026. Our region continues to be anchored by strong domestic demand, robust investment activity, recovering exports, and favorable employment conditions. Nonetheless, we remain vigilant of risk to our short-term and medium-term growth, particularly those stemming from reduced global trade, investment flows, and recently announced additional and new reciprocal tariffs by the United States. We are monitoring this closely and are ready to address this volatility if the need arises. ASEAN reaffirms its continued commitment to open, inclusive, and rule-based multilateral trading systems and to ASEAN's economic integration. We stand ready to work constructively with all partners, including the United States, to find balanced, forward-looking solutions that support a more resilient and sustainable global economy. ASEAN commits to not impose any retaliatory measures in response to the US tariffs. Amid heightened global uncertainty, we reaffirm our commitment to strengthen financial resilience, accelerate financial integration within ASEAN, thus supporting greater intra-ASEAN trade and investment integration. We call upon the international financial institutions to give prominence to the risk that elevated tariff pose to the global economy and to articulate these concerns with greater clarity and emphasis. During our ASEAN chairmanship, Malaysia has set 3 priority economic deliverables under the finance track. We are pleased to announce the progress of these PEDs as follows. PED number 1, focusing on catalyzing access to finance for a just transition and climate resilience. In approaching transition as a whole, ASEAN is determined for the journey to be just and orderly, and inclusive yet credible. Tools that are developed must be useful and reasonable, benchmarked to other internationally recognized frameworks while molded to ASEAN's needs as follows. First, ASEAN's Taxonomy version 4 is on track for launch in November this year. Second, ASEAN Transition Finance Guidance version 2 was endorsed also at this meeting. 3, the ASEAN Infrastructure Fund AIF Action Plan 2025 to 2028 was also approved by the AIF Board of Directors on the 13th of March 2025 and endorsed at the ASEAN Finance Ministers meeting today. Significant progress has been made to secure investors for the ASEAN Power Grid, with roundtable discussions held on the 7th of April 2025, involving, of course, some key players such as TNB and Petronas to mobilize funding solutions. Fifth, the ASEAN Greening Value Chain Playbook was released on the 8th of April 2025, with Thailand potentially piloting the regional program. Lastly, ASEAN's Simplified ESG Disclosure Guide version 1 was also launched on the 8th of April 2025, with the final version to be unveiled in November 2025. Second PED, accelerating the growth of the ASEAN capital markets. At present, market-based financing within ASEAN only represents 54% of the GDP. Coupled with a high projected growth rate and the fact that ASEAN is deeply integrated to the global value chain while having a competitive regional market, ASEAN capital markets have a large potential to further mobilize capital within the region. For this purpose, the ASEAN Capital Market Forum, ACMF, Action Plan 2026-2030 is on track and will be launched at the ASEAN Capital Market Forum International Conference in November 2025. The third PED focuses on fostering inclusive instant payment connectivity in ASEAN. Recognizing that scaling up bilateral payment linkages across many countries beyond region may well be challenging, developments of multilateral payment connectivity infrastructure, the roadmap and quantitative targets have been finalized and endorsed at the meeting today. We also reaffirm our commitment to financial stability and integration and welcome progress made under the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025. This includes capital market development, banking integration, financial inclusion, and new guidelines for local currency transactions. We also would like to acknowledge the United Kingdom's support in conducting the end-term review of the AEC Blueprint. In the area of trade, customs, tax, and treasury cooperation, we acknowledge the progress in custom digitalization and tax cooperation, including Malaysia's proposal for a regional tax identification number framework to strengthen data accuracy in tax compliance. We also welcome the inaugural Asian Treasury Forum meeting held in Bali last year, which fosters knowledge exchange in public financial management. We also spent some time talking about scaling up sustainable finance. In this instance, we endorsed the ASEAN Infrastructure Fund, Action Plan 2025 to 2028, which includes the establishment of new financing facilities such as, firstly, the Regional Connectivity Project Readiness Facility, RCF. Second, the ASEAN Power Grid Transition Financial Facility, and a pilot Islamic finance facility. We also acknowledge the progress of version 3 of the ASEAN taxonomy, the upcoming version 4, and other key initiatives like the ASEAN Green Map, ASEAN Transition Finance Guidelines, version 2, and ASEAN Green Transformation Consortium. The meeting also took some time to also engage with business councils and international financial institutions. We appreciated the invaluable input from the US ASEAN Business Council, the EU ASEAN Business Council, and the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. Their perspectives are crucial in promoting private sector participation in areas such as digital transformation, cross-border payments, sustainability, and supply chains. Additionally, we welcome the engagement of the international financial institutions, including Professor Richard Baldwin, World Bank, and ASEAN Development Bank, who shared insights on thematic topics of inward-looking global trade and impact on ASEAN, ASEAN's tough balancing act, and building ASEAN's resilience. We would also like to thank the ASEAN Secretariat for its support and look forward to the Philippines ASEAN Chairmanship in 2026, where we will begin to implement the new AAC Strategic Plan 2026-2030 as we progress towards the ASEAN Community Vision 2045. Clearly, a lot of things were handled during this 4 days here, and it was meetings that was worthwhile because the more important thing is the work that have been progressed over the multi-years carried through with clear deliverables and execution elements going forward. Of course, we could not detract ourselves from hot issues such as the tariff issues, and these were also discussed, and there were very strong alignments within the ASEAN countries in terms of how and what stance that the ASEAN countries would like to take. Before I conclude, I would like to invite Governor Rasheed to also share his insights made under central bank track. Governor?
Sure. Thank you, Muhammad. Muhammad has covered comprehensively in terms of the work that we did over the last couple of days. Let me just touch on 3 initiatives covering the areas of sustainability and payments with the focus of improving efficiency, inclusivity and resilience in the ASEAN region. First, we brought together a diverse set of funders, such as the multilateral development banks, the MDBs. We've got the private investors, we've got asset managers, financial institutions, and also philanthropists to discuss and also explore innovative funding mechanism, including blended finance and also Islamic finance instruments. What we mentioned in terms of the roundtable that we had on Monday, we had more than 50 investors, project owners, and also policy makers that participated in the roundtable to discuss potential funding modalities for 2 mega projects in ASEAN. We got many mega projects, many projects that can be covered, but we focus on 2. First is the APG project, the ASEAN Power Grid project, and the second is the carbon capture and storage project in Malaysia. And many of the investors expressed interest to further discuss the potential financing support, ranging from project financing, debt-based financing, equity participation, as well as grants, concessional grants, with the view to make meaningful progress on this front. Yesterday, we also organized a pitching session, Yang Berhormat, the Pitch for the Planet, which featured 10 high-impact green and transition projects, including by MSMEs from across the region. And these events and discussions are just the beginning. We will continue working towards our goal of securing funding for sustainable projects such as the APG. Second, given the significance of SMEs in the ASEAN economies, as you know, more than 90% of our business establishments are actually SMEs. So what we did is that we just released the Greening Value Chain Playbook for ASEAN, titled Building Supply Chain Resilience, Insights into Greening Value Chain for ASEAN. And this is meant to support SMEs to decarbonize their operations. Lastly, in fostering inclusive instant payment connectivity within ASEAN, the ASEAN finance ministers and governors also endorsed the finalization of the roadmap to facilitate the participation of all ASEAN member states in the regional instant payment connectivity. And I'm pleased to announce that we are on track to achieve our target of expanding the number of linkages in the region to 25 by 2025, by end of this year. So far, we have established 21 live linkages with over 5.2 million cross-border QR payment transactions as recorded across the region last year. And through these collaborations, now that we have collaborations with Thailand, Indonesia, and also Singapore, and they are the participating local merchants, and what you can do is just scan your national QR codes and vice versa. For example, when Malaysians travel to Singapore, Indonesia and Thailand, you can just use your QR code to make payments. Similarly, tourists from Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia can come to Malaysia and buy even from our Pasar Malam using QR code. And on Tuesday, we expanded this. We signed and we launched the second phase of the QR payment linkages between Malaysia and Cambodia. So now visitors from Cambodia coming into Malaysia can also use QR code payment. Similarly, for Malaysians traveling to Cambodia as well. This is very important because with this we are actually empowering the SMEs and also households to also trade cross-border. So this is what we meant in terms of encouraging ASEAN integration, not just at the corporate level, but also at the SMEs and also individuals and P2P level. While the meeting has come to an end, as Hamzah mentioned just now, our work continues. We will continue to engage with the key stakeholders within the region to push through what we have set out to do. And together, we can achieve a more resilient, competitive, and sustainable development across ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Rasheed. As you see, it's been a very long and productive 4 days, but I'm sure there will be some questions that you all would like to ask. So I think Governor Rasheed and I will be happy to address issues that are being raised.
Address the methods over the next 90 days, or what would you guys be doing specifically? How can you help industries, businesses, especially with the shipments now start off, halting their shipments to the US? What are the measures that you can help them?
I think it's important that we recognize that the seismic shift coming up from the US reciprocal tariffs are things that all countries will have to address. Yeah? But Malaysia has always encouraged a few key things. Firstly, we recognize that the old multilateral systems are still important because they provide predictability, they provide a rule-based mechanism, and we want to encourage that this continues to be done as we move ahead. Because in all investment climates, you need certainty and you need predictability to be able to allow investors to invest in things. So it's important that core principles continue to be articulated. And in the joint statement that the ASEAN economic ministers issued today, and the ones that the finance ministers and the central governments are issuing also today, you will see us reiterate that as an important element. The reprieve that has been given in terms of a 90-day reprieve allows cool heads and calm conversations to be held so that we all work towards a fair and balanced outcome in the future. Yeah? And I think we need to let time be given for that conversation to occur, right. Which is why Malaysia has always encouraged that do not react aggressively, do not overreact, do not jump, but actually take measured approach. Malaysia is also engaged on the basis that we are very keen to see dialogues occur, because through dialogue we can create common understanding, and then we can design things that can be worked on a better outcome overall. So I understand there will be groups that will be concerned. Yes, the government is also concerned, but we must take the time and process well so we get to the best outcome rather than rush head in without having thought through the consequences what we have. And if the government's also been very proactive in a sense that it created a national geo-economic command center chaired by the Prime Minister, and has also committed that we will continue dialogues from here and also within Washington, and we will have delegations that will be going to discuss how we want to take it forward. And I think that's the best outcome that we can. That's in dealing with the seismic change that's been transmitted to all of us. However, as you see from the background of what we're doing in terms of the ASEAN Finance Minister and Governor meeting, we've already had ongoing plans that are things that are within our control. And it's always better to work and deliver things which are within our control. We have a tremendous opportunity to continue to drive inter-ASEAN trade. At the moment, the ASEAN as a bloc is number 3, number 4 biggest bloc in the world from a trading point of view, but intra-ASEAN trade is only 22%. Yeah? I think we have good spirits of working together as ASEAN countries, but now we have a catalyst to encourage us to do more, which is why when you look at the initiatives underneath the finance track, we're talking about enabling instant cash payments, transactions. We're looking at how we can simplify custom processes to smooth out and remove friction in dealings with our fellow ASEAN member states. Outside the ASEAN fellow member states, that's why we also have engagements with the EU, we have engagements with the US, we look at ways that we can continue to promote more trade. Yeah? And sometimes in this process, we have to look at the medium-term outcome. How do we create an environment that more trade can occur in other parts that will give us better balance and diversity? And I think that's one thing that Malaysia has always done well over the years. We've seen good things, we have seen bad things, we've been through shocks, but we've always come out stronger along the way. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you. I'm from Phoenix TV, Gomie. And I just hope to know, during the meeting, has the ASEAN the financial ministers and bank leaders discuss about how to evaluate the relations of America and China, because nowadays China has already been imposed on 125% tariff, and also China also imposed on the tariff to, I think so far it's 84% to American goods. So this is a very big issue and will influence globally and the regional's economy and the trade communications. So has leaders, ministers in the conference evaluate how to face this kind of tough situation if China and Americans their conflict become more intense. So what kind of thing will happen? What kind of situation will be the China and United States relations? Will they decouple? Is it possible? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very, very broad and very, very difficult question. Yeah. So I will try to frame some thoughts along the way, and I will also encourage Governor Rasheed to also chip in for that conversation. And the reality is this is a fluid situation that develops by the day, by the hour, and so on. And at the end of the day, I think that's why when we look at it from an ASEAN point of view, we look at it from a Malaysia point of view, we go back to core principles. And in our core principles, we are a core promoter for multilateralism. We are a core promoter for free trade along the way. We also encourage good, clear dialogues in order to come to a relation that we can work through our problems along the way. I think that's important. In the short term, of course, there will be a lot of things that will populate the headlines and the news and everything along the way. We should not overreact on news and things along the way, but we should look at things that we can peel and act on things that we have in our control. Therefore, from an ASEAN point of view, what do we have in control that we can work through? We can work on making the ease of doing business better among ourselves, because there's an untapped potential that we can work through, and we can continue to promote that within the principles that we all agree. That multilateralism is important, more trade coming along this is important, free trade mechanisms is important, and simplification and doing more in terms of ease of doing business is important. And I think that's what are controllable, and the controllable ones you do a lot more, and you step up. In areas that we may not have had enough integration, we may not have had enough relations, we work towards that. And again, I think the ASEAN philosophy has always been an economy that has centrality. We trade with everyone. We want to be able to do it because a much more open trading world creates more prosperity and more wealth for everybody along the way. So we'll push. We understand that there will continue to be challenges. We understand there will continue to be attempts to do a lot of our things along the way. But we react with what tools that we can do along the way, and we promote balance and things to make sure it's better. It's beholden on also all governments to try to create mechanisms that the long-term future is better for everybody along the way. It's also a responsibility of all governments to look at what we can do to manage the situation as what we have. So I think all governments are looking at that, and even the Malaysian government is looking at the impact that it's going to take. But we should not take decisions without working through how the impact is best managed. Yeah. So I know you want me to answer very difficult questions, take positions in it. But as I said, these are positions that are evolving by the day, evolving by the hour. Work on things that you have in your control. Work on things that provide resilience to your economy. Work on things that you can actually create more opportunities that actually help us be better as we move ahead, and hold on to principles which are important. Governor?
Thank you, Yang Muhammad. I think if I can add to what Mr. mentioned, I echo in terms of the comments. I think first is that at the meeting we acknowledge there could be some impact in terms of at the individual country level and also at the ASEAN level. And we have had some early assessment in terms of what could be the potential impact. But again, it's only an initial assessment. But this is something, as what Minister mentioned, is still very fluid. I'm not sure how much, I think, where it will land. For example, in terms of the tariff itself, I think you see every day new announcements coming in. It's not settled down yet. So it's good to wait and see once this has settled down, once you have clarity in terms of the level of tariff, when it will be introduced, and how much it is, and what are the effects from the retaliation, and also in terms of the details regard to the products itself. Once we have the set of criteria and also data point, that will make it easier for us to have a proper, accurate assessment. That will guide us in terms of the policy actions. But having said that, I think we also discussed in terms of what can we do. As Mr. mentioned, that one important point is that the cooperation among ASEAN itself. That's very strong. We can build on that. For example, in terms of our trade right now, it's about 20%. It's something that we have great room for us to push ahead. That's something that we have committed to continue to do. The second is that how can we also leverage on the potential of ASEAN? You must know that ASEAN has about 700 million population and young demographic and also a fast-growing region in the world. In fact, we contributed quite largely to the global growth. So among us, if we can work together, we can enhance in terms of our integration. So that's where I think we can really manage or mitigate any potential impact that's coming from the developments in the global at the moment. Thank you.
Afternoon, YB.
Side, then we switch to that side.
YB on your left. Amir from The Edge. I have two questions, one for YB and one for Governor Rasheed. The first question is, I understand that the current situation is fluid and it changes every day. But you mentioned on Tuesday during the panel session that it's unrealistic to think that to maintain the official GDP projection for Malaysia. To what extent do you think this will affect the official GDP projection? And is MOF already considering any fiscal measures to help maybe Malaysian exporters? And for Governor, in the past few days there seems to be a mixed view by analysts in terms of how this will affect the ringgit. Some may say that it's beneficial in terms of lowering the ringgit and then it will be better for our exports. What's BNM stance on this, and are you also considering any interventions to help address this? Thank you.
Okay, let me try to address some of the issues that you brought up, and Governor will follow after that. Let's start at the very basics. These are interesting times. Interesting times. We have a lot of fluidity that's happening at this point of time, which is why the focus for Malaysia is work on things that you can control. Yeah, work on things that you can control and create an environment that businesses have certainty. And when they have certainty, they will invest. The worst thing that can happen today when there is no uncertainty, when there is high uncertainty. When uncertainty is high, everybody waits. And when we wait, the economy will slow down even more dramatically along the way. So from a Malaysian perspective, if you see the economy Madani framework, you've seen what MOF has been trying to do. We've been trying to create various engines of growth within the economy. We focus on the FDI engine over the last 2 years. We brought in a lot of FDIs, and the economic activity on the back of the FDIs are translating. We're trying to high grade the economy by bringing better quality investments in the economy, so we design a better outcome for our population as we move forward. At the same time, we went and we asked the question, what else can our domestic investments do in this country? Can we activate the large liquidity that actually exists in Malaysia? And we've seen a very, very good response come up from our GLICs. Yeah, the GLICs committed to put in 120 billion, yeah, on top of their normal 440 billion over a 5-year period. Yeah, that's a huge stimulus on the ground. I don't think that commitment has changed, because they have identified areas that they believe that the business model will generate a fair return for them, yeah, but at the same time catalyze the Malaysian economy. So from an MOF point of view, I need to do more of this. I need to push more of these activities to come to fruition, because by doing this, creating economic activity, we dampen the effects of whatever external challenges that actually exist. Now that's good work. It's good work because we can control it, along the way. Do we still have to address the trade issues? Yes, we have to. But don't forget what you've got in your hand and what you can do to execute it. If you look at the economy Madani framework, what we also try to do, we focused about how do you actually lift society in a better form, because we want the gap between the haves and have-nots to narrow a little bit. But we don't want taking away from the haves and give it to the have-not. What we want is actually to encourage the economy to get better. So then we talk about how do we share the cake rather than how do I cut the cake, because the cake is not growing, then we redistribute. That's not a good outcome. So what have we done? By making the GDP grow, and we saw good growth last year at 5.1%, we looked at what can we now afford to do. Therefore, for the government sector, we saw a pelarisan gaji, increase in their pay that's gone in. So that's provided private consumption stimulus in the economy. In February this year, we pushed up minimum wage. That's providing, again, a stimulus in the market for private consumption that's gone in. We've also went in and encouraged our GLICs and GLCs to embrace living wage. Say, oh, come on, you guys are strong enough, you're big enough, you're better. Don't embrace minimum wage, embrace living wage. And most of them now said, yes, we will embrace that as our minimum acceptable amount. And that will put money in the hand of the citizenry. When money goes in the hand of the citizenry, they spend. They spend because they have needs that needs to be fulfilled. And that stimulates the economy. Again, the focus that we have is what can we do? What levers can we pull? And how do we push it to make it better for Malaysia? I think that's what you want us to do. Rather than react on things that are a lot harder to get immediacy, deal with things that you have immediacy. At the same time, we also understand sometimes there will be groups of people that will struggle a bit because they are in a bit more difficult situation. So the government is trying to say, how do I make my dollar go further? So the subsidy rationalization is not about taking away subsidy. It's about making sure the subsidy dollar goes further to go to the right groups of people, and you've seen that enhanced. The SARA scheme moved from 700,000 people to 5.4 million people, which we put money in their hands. But we got smarter in identification, we got smarter in the tools that we put out, so that the effect of what they do is actually spending into the system domestically. So that's what I call good engineering. That's what I call good stimulus, and it sustains and it builds. So we need to do more and more of this, things that we can do. And what we're learning also in working together with ASEAN is lots of potential that we can do more within ASEAN, and codependency that we can create. Let's create this business opportunity. Even things that we think are simplistic, instant payment. When we have this in our hand and we look at online things, online ordering, a small shop holder in Malaysia can now market things everywhere within the ASEAN region. If instant payment gets to be done, but he wants payment to be done in his own currency, ringgit. So what Bank Negara and the payment team has done is enable that to happen, because he understands ringgit. He doesn't understand Vietnamese dong. He doesn't understand the rupiah. So now the instant payment capacity is allowing the transaction to cross borders, to enable the small-time business person to actually participate in a wider range. We got to do more of this so that we underpin the growth of intra-ASEAN trade.
Thank you, Muhammad. I think 2 points. I think first you mentioned about growth. When we came out with the 4.5 to 5.5% when we released the annual report, we actually take into account some potential impact from this tariff announcement. But when the announcement was made on Liberation Day, the size of the tariff was huge. It's bigger than what we expected. It's bigger than what others globally expected as well. So based on that, surely there will be some impact in terms of our growth range. It is under review at the moment, but we're not going to be in a rush to change the range at this point of time. Why? Because there's no certainty. Let's wait for things to settle down. Once you are clear in terms of what are the parameters that's affecting our growth range, then we'll make the adjustment. Then it's easier for us to, based on this baseline range, for us to make policy recommendations and policy decisions. That's number one. But having said that, as YB Minister mentioned, I think we are entering this situation from a position of strength. Last year we grew by 5.1%. We are the 5% club. And this is supported by a lot of key drivers. Consumption is definitely one, and don't forget, we have investment as well. In fact, investment last year was very high. And what we saw is the kind of investment that's coming in are all this high quality investment, and it's being driven by domestic direct investment, so meaning we rely more on our domestic investment, although FDI is increasing. And third is that there's strong domestic linkages in this investment itself. And it's also privately driven, not so much from the government. Government's investment continues to be there, and there's private sector investment is there as well. And one more point on investment is that we see the realization of investment has increased. In fact, 84.5% of projects that was approved, investment that was approved between 2021 to 24 has been at various stage of implementation. Once they implemented, it will not stop. It will continue. So that will provide growth for this year. So these are the drivers that will continue to push growth. Export will be affected. But again, when you look at the export in Malaysia, mainly are E&E and semiconductors. If semiconductors are exempted, alhamdulillah, that's good. But if it's not, again, it might come down, but it will not tank. Why? Because the demand for AI, the demand for digitalization will always be there. So we will be able to uphold this. But anyhow, we'll look at that once we have certainty, and then we'll see what will be the range for next year. Ringgit. Yes, we have seen some volatility. I'm sure you have observed this as well, and you can expect that. And you can even expect this to continue until there's clearer certainty in terms of where the policy, especially in regard to tariff, lands. But having said that, I would say that the ringgit and also the currency in the region have been pretty resilient. And what is supporting this? A number of factors. Number one, for Malaysia, we have strong fundamentals. And we have strong economic growth prospects as well. And the government is committed in terms of undertaking the structural reform, and this will provide enduring support for the ringgit. At the same time, we'll continue with the coordinated measures that we have done last year between Negara, the government, the colleagues and GLC. This will continue. And this income is recurring. It will come on. I mean, every time, now and then. So this will be continuous support to the ringgit as well. And we will continue to also engage with our exporters in terms of encouraging them to bring back their proceeds and convert into ringgit. And all this will provide support to the ringgit. And in terms of our intervention, if at all, is only to ensure that there's no excessive volatility and that it remains orderly. The market remains orderly. Why is it important? Because once it's orderly, so that's where it provides stability for business to make their decisions and to implement their business strategies. Thank you.
There is a question on this side.
Seiichi Oshima from GG Press, a Japanese news agency. Thank you very much for your presentation. Well, speaking of the domestic demand, will it be an option for the proposal to the United States to stimulate domestic demand, aggregated domestic demand within ASEAN, like committing to a certain level of expenditure in infrastructure investment like ASEAN power grid? And will it be a future option? And then also, could you explain a bit about the ASEAN power grid facility, the size and when it will be deployed?
Okay. I think the reality is all countries will have to plan and work towards a long term. I think in the Malaysian plan and what we think are important to actually add to the economy, infrastructure of course plays a heavy role. And fundamentally Malaysia made certain commitments that we want to honor. Yeah? We made a commitment that we want to go net zero by 2050. That has not changed. Despite volatility, whatever, that's not changed. How do we get to net zero by 2050? We have to actually green the grid. Yeah. Some part of the greening of the grid probably cannot be done solely in Malaysia. And the ASEAN power grid plays a very critical role to allow the connection and the ability for green electrons to come into a Malaysian environment. And the good thing is, if we are able to do this, you create economic activity. By creating this economic activity, I think it helps do a lot of things in the ASEAN economy in general. So, Malaysia has said yes, we will commit and we will continue to do. So what's happening now is that ongoing discussions are ongoing. So we're looking about building a connection between Vietnam to Malaysia, put a submarine cable that will draw electrons into Malaysia, bring it down into Singapore, and some of it will be used already in Malaysia. That's a big first step. Good project. Projects create opportunity, and because it's core long-term infrastructure that's worthwhile, it's sustainable. And if you look back again, over the last 2 years, what did we do in our own electrical process, right? We rebalanced the electrical mechanism whereby we no longer provide subsidy from the government. Yeah? It's self-funding along the way. So private sector now plays a huge role because they can fund it. Yeah? It doesn't depend on subsidies to